There are two types of people. One who is driven by faith, another who is driven by fear, by logic, by opinion, ultimately by unbelief. Both of these people have the facts. I want to illustrate to you looking at Numbers chapter 13 and 14. God tells Moses, send 12 spies to the land of Canaan. Let them go, look at the land, come back, and give a report. These spies look, walk for 40 days, come back with large grapes. Man had to carry these grapes on the pole. They came back with pomegranates, figs, and they said, we went into the land when you sent us, and it certainly does flow with milk and honey, and this is the fruits. Nevertheless, the people who live in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak. What they said is, the land is fruitful, yes, it's true, yet people are strong, they're giants, cities are large, fortified, no way we could go there. We see two types of groups. 10 spies begin to tell the people that this was not a good idea. And 2 spies, in verse 30, Caleb and Joshua, say, we should by all means go up and take possessions of it, for we will surely overcome it. Numbers 13:30. Caleb Joshua said, let's go. We will do this. In verse 31, we have the second group come in, the 10 spies. Numbers 13:31. We're not able to go up against these people, for they are too strong for us. Both of these groups have the facts. Both of them looking at the same thing. But they split when they interpret what they see. 10 people say, don't go. 2 people say, let's go. Verse 32 concludes that the 10 people who came and gave the report were bad report. They give out of the sons of Israel a bad report of land which they had spied out. In chapter 14, verse 36 and 37, repeat the same thing. They brought bad report. The man who Moses sent spy out the land and who returned and made all the congregation grumble against him by bringing out a bad report concerning the land. Verse 37, even those men who brought out the very bad report of land died by the plague before the Lord. They had the facts right. It was their conclusion. It was their interpretation. A conclusion that was based on their logic and absent of what God has promised. It was based on their strength. You know, we see this in the news. They report facts correctly. It's just how the facts are presented. Recently, a report came out that a large amount of money was paid to bloggers and news organizations for what? To report specific events with specific angle. That is to shape the opinions of the people who are watching this. And that's what we see here. It's like a bad news report. If we go back to Numbers chapter 14, we see 10 spies were able to affect the mood of the whole Israel congregation. Like the whole people now responds according to 10 spies. Numbers 14:1. Then all the congregation lifted up their voice and cried, and the people wept that night. People were affected by 10 spies, their bad report. The next day, they came out to Moses and Aaron and grumbled. That was their response. They said, would that we had died in the land of Egypt, or that we had died in the wilderness? Why is the Lord bringing us into this land? To fall by the sword? Our wives and our little ones will become plunder. Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt? Numbers 14:2-3. This is how they conclude. They conclude by bad report. No way we could live. No way we could conquer. They interpret the information incorrectly. You know how easily people are affected. How mood is there affected by others. It takes only the right amount of people with a right amount of information that lead the crowd away from what is true. They're crying, they can't sleep, they're grumbling, they conclude that they will die. So the crowd takes action. Numbers 14:4. Let us appoint a leader and return to Egypt. That's like a response to every crowd that doesn't like where things are going. This is their game plan. Moses and Aaron fall down on their face before the people. Number 14, 15. They're like five. They are humiliated. Joshua and Caleb tore their clothes. And Joshua and Caleb said, the land which we possess through the spy out is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord is pleased with us, then he will bring us into the land and give it to us, and a land which flows with milk and honey. This was a totally different review or opinion than the 10 spies. The Lord has told us, we need to go. Let us go. He will protect us. Do not rebel against the Lord. Do not fear the people of the land. They will be our prey. Their protection has removed from them. God is with us. This is the two spies, Joshua and Caleb. How did the people respond to Caleb and Joshua? They responded with this: stone them. Stone them. They're preventing us to do what we want. And God responds with judgment. Moses steps in and says, please, God, don't destroy these people. And God says, these are the evil congregation. They oppose me. In verse 35, God again calls them an evil generation. And he calls the 10 men, responds and grumble against him as a bad report. At that moment, God kills these 10 people with a plague so dramatic, so, moving. And if we think that it's an end to this, no, the next morning, the crowd wakes up and say, we have sinned. You're like, oh, finally, they have repented. We will go to the land God has promised. Numbers 14:40. They shifted 180 degrees. They saw what God did to the 10 men who died. Moses begs them and says, don't go. You will be killed. God will not be with you. They refused to listen to Moses, and they went. The Amalekites and Canaanites came down from the mountain and struck them, and the people who went there died. What do we see here? We see an importance of having not only our facts correctly, but how we interpret it. It is important for us to know what God has promised and construct our lives according to his promise. We might have the facts right, yet we might not interpret these facts correctly. Some might tell us, look, life is not going well. Economy's crashing. Or they would say other things that affect us negatively. We might be looking at like those 10 spies who look at the world from their perspective and do not bring God's promise into the picture that God has brought. We have this great example in an epistle of Hebrews. There's an interesting scene presenting men of faith in chapter 11. And verse 33 through 35 describes man who conquered, performed acts of righteousness, obtained promise, shut mouths of lions, quenched the power of fire, escaped the edge of sword, from weakness were made strong. We see these victory, conquer, strong men. But verse 35b to 38, there's another side to also men of faith. These were tortured, not released, received mockery, scourging, chained, imprisoned, stoned, sawn in two, tempted, put to death with a sword, put in sheepskin and goatskin, were tortured, afflicted, ill-treated, wandered in deserts, mountains, caves, and holes. And these also were faithful men. And look how verse 39 says, Hebrew 11:39. And all these, having gained approval through their faith, did not receive what was promised. Notice that, did not receive what was promised. What drove them? Faith in God. God said it, we need to do it. We're put in either of these two categories. We either interpret facts through God's promise, through his word, through the scripture, through the teaching, or we interpret facts like these 10 spies bringing bad report. We interpret a bad report to how we live our life and how we view things. And we need to understand that what we say and how we live will affect those who are around us, our friends, our spouses, our children. What we say, bad report, will affect our children. We either encourage people to have faith in God and live according to his teaching, or we bring bad report and move them the way the 10 spies moved the crowd. This is a good reminder. May the Lord bless us to be like Joshua and Caleb. Let us look at our situation through God's promises, through his word. Let us interpret, not only get the facts right, let us interpret our facts through the way God describes them in his word. May you be blessed.